welcome to the ARKAST podcast. You know, I really got to work on the name of this thing. ARKAST podcast.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of casts.
A lot of casting in there.
But,
so we'll work it out. But anyways,
yeah, it's also smooth, you know.
Yeah. So this is just the first episode.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay, wow.
You didn't know you were getting into that, did you?
No, I didn't, but I'm flattered to be part of this.
Well,
so
great
thank you.
to throw you into that one. Yes. Anyways, I'm Ty King, and you can introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Karen Steward, and I have a podcast production company here in Little Rock, or we have clients all around the world.
Yeah, wherever you're at.
Yeah, and it is called Power of Pod.
Yeah. If you're in Little Rock, it's in Little Rock. If you're anywhere else, it's there too. It's there.
Exactly, yes.
You can use it online.
We're global.
Right. Well, you're online. It doesn't really matter where they're at, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
So you own a podcast producing company? Is that what we call it?
Yes,
yeah.
And I've expanded. So I used to call it podcast production, but now I call it podcast production and marketing.
Okay.
Just because marketing is such a big deal in terms of you can create the best content in the world, but ultimately if you don't market it and people don't know where it is.
I've got lots of questions about that.
Okay,
so
I hope I have lots of answers.
Well, I hope so. You're a professional.
Okay.
Right? Nobody starts a business without being completely knowledgeable on every subject within that business, right?
Oh, I've learned so much.
They are the expert.
Yes.
Now, you learn a lot. Then you find out, for me anyway, I'm like, oh, well, we do this. And then year or 2, 3 years down the road, and I'm like, okay, I don't know anything. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you hit a roadblock. And
it
like,
constantly changes. And even over the past month, I've gotten into a lot of the legal stuff, like intellectual property, because anyone can start a podcast, but there's a lot of legal stuff that, some of which I knew about, some of which I didn't. So I'm going to take some courses on that too.
Yes.
And just, become knowledgeable in all these different areas.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
Learning experience.
Well, thank you for joining me on the first episode.
I
don't know if you know this, but I'm not very super professional in that type of thing. So we're going to be kind of fast and loose with this and have some fun.
That sounds good.
Good,
yes.
Good. Okay, good. No scripts here. I hate scripts.
Yeah,
I'm just like, it's going to be come off the cuff. And you're not going to be prepared for these answers.
Okay.
The questions I'm going to ask.
Okay, I'll try to focus.
Nervous yet?
A little bit.
Nervous?
I'm much better with a script because I have years and years of practice with holding a new script in front of me. But I will chill. You've got a good relaxing vibe, so that's good.
Well, good.
And I will do my very best to answer your questions.
Very good. We need to put you under the heat lamps. And
that changes.
That's how they do interrogations.
Right, exactly.
Light on you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this being the first podcast and you being the first guest, right? So we know that you have a production company, and I guess we should explain a little bit more about what ARKAST is, as far as we're a podcast resource for podcasters by podcasters, mostly in Arkansas, and so that's what we are sort of targeting is all the podcasters in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how I met you. Because you have a podcast, you live in Arkansas, and that you have put out. That is true. That is true. And your podcast is even about something that happened in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, do you want to talk about burden?
Oh, always.
Yes.
And breaking news, but just really in my world. Yesterday, we reached 200,000 downloads.
That's great.
So thank you. So that was a big deal for us.
Whoever's listening to that, that's nice. Do you get the analytics on that and see who's listening to that?
And it's the really neat thing is, so I assumed it would be all Arkansas. I just did. And number one is always Texarkana, Arkansas, because that's where the story is from. But Little Rock is actually usually number 16 or 17, and it's Chicago and Dallas.
Really?
And that's pretty cool because I didn't. You hope a story will also resonate beyond the borders of Arkansas. So
do you think you're being in the category of true crime? Do you think Chicago and places like that is because more people are listening to the true crime podcast?
I think so.
There?
People are so interested in that category.
That's awesome.
We're fortunate to be in a category that people care about.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about Burden. What is Burden?
So Burden is an investigative true crime podcast. And it covers the suspicious death of Billie Jean Letterman in 1991 in Texarkana, Arkansas.
Yeah.
And it started because there was a former journalist and attorney. She's not a former attorney. She is an attorney. She came to me and said, I've been looking into this case. I have all this footage. Like, she had beautiful video footage of everything. She did all this research, and she said, I don't know what to do with it all. Can you help me organize it and see where we go from here? And so I was really excited because I love organizing content.
Yeah.
I love outlines of things, outlining the episodes, seeing how the characters come in. That's my thing. I love to do it. And so we started working. And originally, I wasn't going to co-host. Stephanie Harris, my co-host, was my client.
Right.
And
she was. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's how it started.
Wow.
And she'd picked a co-host who, unfortunately, due to personal reasons, had to back out. And at that point, it was like, I really want this story to be told. I'll do anything. So I said, Stephanie, let me co-host, and I'll do this for free too. And she said, sure. And it's been great. It's been a privilege to be part of it.
That's awesome. Great deal for her. You'll co-host
I hope so.
and not take any pay and probably market this thing and well, great. Well, it seems to work out. Over 200,000, you said, downloads right now, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
Pretty incredible. Yeah. So, I mean, so you and Stephanie, so you have legal backgrounds.
Stephanie does. I have a background I worked for the Arkansas Supreme Court, but in a communications position. And one of my, so they didn't want a lawyer in that position for a very specific purpose. I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's fine.
It's casual, right?
Yeah.
So
I was just hoping it was water.
Yeah, it is water.
Okay.
Well, you wouldn't know. So
that's
why I have this
grenade
bottle.
Or something. I don't know. It's got a strange top to it. Okay.
It is kind of a strange top, but it was a free swag bottle, and I always love those. I will take them any day.
Exactly.
So, yeah. What was the question?
You were in a communications position.
Yes, that's what it was. So they hired me, and I didn't have a legal background, but they liked that because it was teaching civics in schools and to adults as well.
Yeah.
So I was, the average person who had some media experience. I was a reporter for over 20 years, and so I have some experience in taking complex information and distilling it down for the general public. And so it was a wonderful job. I really loved it.
Awesome. So is the communications position, obviously you're interested in talking, right?
Yes.
So is that what got you into podcasting, or?
Okay, so podcasting. So since I'd worked in a newsroom for over 20 years, there was something that I noticed in newsrooms. And this is in no way unique to the newsroom I worked in. It's going on, across the nation, especially with the layoffs of journalists and not as much advertising revenue. A lot of times newsrooms, to me, are the news according to like 4 people in the newsroom. And sometimes those 4 people, are white and there's no diversity there.
Sure.
And then maybe you'll, hire one person who represents the diversity, but you're putting a lot on them then to be like, okay, you're going to represent that.
Yeah.
So and also journalists usually will pick topics that they really love, which is great, but they're kind of like honed in on certain topics rather than like, So we try to expand our contacts, our Rolodex, to use a really old ancient term. But it just felt like there must be another solution, and podcasting was it. It represents the democratization, that word's hard to say sometimes, of media. And so anyone can have a voice. You don't need a broadcasting network that goes out to 80,000 people.
Right.
And I love that. So I figured, well, I have some experience in audio editing, in taking content, because a lot of people who start podcasting, they have a broad topic, but they're like, I don't really know what I want to talk about or who I want to interview. And I'm like, that's great. Let me, give you some suggestions.
Yeah.
So basically then, the podcast world has become, I'm going to end my answer soon, but the podcast world has become more competitive because all these people got into it. So you do need some kind of edge to stand out in the crowd. And my hope is that I can help podcasters, be a little more professional. I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but, a lot of people don't have the experience. So, and so be an affordable avenue to get the podcast audio and marketing and all those elements together. So.
Careful with that A word, the affordable part.
I know.
People
I know.
are like, oh, I've got $5. Can you help me?
Exactly. So affordable compared to big marketing companies.
There you go. Yeah, compared to.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up, like, people don't know where to start, and like you help give them ideas because a lot, even when we were going through the podcast convention last year and holding some of the the workshops, lots of people had ideas and like, hey, I've been thinking about starting a podcast, but I've got so many things I want to talk about, just don't really know where to start. And I was like, well, you really need to pick one because you can't just talk to everybody. Yeah. You can be the Walmart of podcast if you want to, but I mean, it's not really gonna be specific towards an audience, and they're less likely to pick it up.
Absolutely. There's research on that too, so you're absolutely right.
Yeah, for sure. So have you seen that Spotify owns Anchor, right? Mm-hmm. So they bought them in 2019, and so they've been rolling out all these different features. And so we started off with being able to upload video onto Spotify. And then we went to like a Spotify Wrapped, but for podcasters. Mm-hmm. Have you seen those yet?
I know.
Like, you reached this many listeners, you recorded this many hours.
Right.
So now they just released this week. It's a new tool to help people that are just getting started with podcasts, and it's a podcast name generator.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I tested it out, and I was like, this is going to be bad. I have been so surprised.
Okay.
Because some of these are really good, and I want to listen to them now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So we're just going to get your opinion.
Sure. Absolutely.
On what these are. All right. So the podcast name generator, so it'll give you the name of a podcast. Okay. But it'll also give you a little synopsis of like what it should be.
Oh.
And maybe who should host it.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So starting off. The name is Do You Like My Shirt? Each week, a new guest tells the story of their favorite article of clothing.
That's neat. I would listen to that. Yeah. If the quality were good, I would absolutely be interested in that content. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Well, as long as it's like an interesting story. So
right. Yes. It's all.
I want to hear about everything. You get picked up at Goodwill, So.
Yeah. Strong storytelling. Right. Absolutely.
Well, this was on sale at Nordstrom. All right, next one. Public radio voice. Yes. Okay, empathy, honesty, vocal fry. Each week, a new guest finds out if they have what it takes to master the smooth, endlessly listenable voice that adds context to our favorite songs.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes me happy because if that's what public radio is associated with, and I certainly hope it would be, that's great. Yeah. So, public radio voice.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm like, I don't have that radio voice. I don't have that part of me.
You also need like a complex name too. A lot of the reporters, there's diversity, and they have beautiful names. I was always Karen Tricot Steward, and I started as Karen Tricot, but like it kind of aligned with everyone who uses their real name. Yeah. So
you decided that using 3 names was going to make you a better reporter?
I kind of, since I started with Karen Tricot.
Okay.
I hoped, yes. So, I'm Lourdes Garcia Navarro. I figured Karen Tricot Steward would be good.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
That's close enough. Got you.
I'm just kidding. Nope. Yeah.
We're past that point. Okay, so just nice. Okay, nice. 2 acquaintances without much to say struggle to maintain conversation over an hour-long weekly podcast.
Oh my gosh! I would listen to one episode just for the awkward. It's fun to kind of
serious introverts just sitting that don't know each other, sitting behind a desk.
I mean, you have to listen at least once just to see what's up with it.
Of course.
But yeah, huh?
What do you like to do?
I don't know.
I don't know. All right, I'm gonna give you a couple more. So don't put "I love you" in the cover letter. Okay, a podcast designed to help you prepare for your next job interview that inevitably devolves into musings on the meaning of work.
That's funny. I have written cover letters with the word love in it. I just have.
Yeah.
To express my passion.
Okay. Yeah.
Especially at the end, I would love
you.
to. No, I that's could be a little creepy. But I would love to talk to you more about this opportunity and what I can contribute to your organization.
Right.
But no, not I love you.
It's a different kind of passion.
Yes.
No, okay, so I don't know this. I see this a lot. Is that just the symbol for a heart sideways whenever you have the less than sign and a 3?
I was thinking less than, like no less than 3. What's the
no
description?
less than 3 is
Maybe
what I would
that's,
think. Yeah. So a show about the semiotics of modern communication and digitally mediated interactions. That was very wordy.
Yeah, it is. They could do
lots of syllables there. Yeah.
Probably. But
semiotics of modern communication and digitally I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I would never listen to this because I'm like, I don't understand your. It's one line, but it's too many syllables. All right, Venn diagram.
That reminds me of Frozen or something. Sven, isn't that the name of the moose?
Of the what?
He's not a moose.
Oh,
in Frozen.
Frozen.
Yeah. Sven diagram. That's
You're right.
Sven, like it's
that's
just
hilarious.
Yeah. Anyway.
Every week, a guy named Sven.
Okay.
Why do you specific? Okay, interviews a stranger named Sven.
That's funny.
To see how much they have in common.
They definitely need a content plan.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got to be more than the name bringing them together.
Honestly, yes, for sure. I did a few earlier today. I know the ARKAST website is back up, and so by the time you're listening to this, the ARKAST website will be up, and I've got several posts on there today. I was going to pull up the 3 that I did earlier, then tested it out. One of them I actually want to listen to. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I would listen to any of these, honestly. So here's one called "Being Tall Isn't That Cool."
Okay.
A podcast that podcast by Short Royalty for Short Royalty that destigmatizes life and dating for 4 or 5 foot something community.
Yeah, I can see that. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Very specific.
Yes. Right. I get very intimidated by tall people because I'm short. So maybe this podcast would help me get a different view or feel more appreciated.
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
The self-loathing comedian loathes self.
I don't know where that could go.
A comedian tells all and interviews industry peers and hopes that they'll do the same.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, yeah. Why are you in comedy?
The tragedy in comedy, there's always like some,
There's usually like a tragic reason.
Depression or something, whatever's behind your smile, yeah. This is the one I really want to listen to. It's Nice, Nice, Mean. 3 hosts. 3 hosts. 2 of them are nice. 1 is mean, and they review movies, products, music, etc., etc.
Like good cop, bad cop, but there's 2 good cops?
Yeah.
Is that what? Okay.
But like 2 have like the silver lining type of attitude, and the other one's just dark and cloudy.
I think there's isn't there a ratio of or when you're criticizing people, it's like, you should say 5 good things and before you say the 1 bad thing or something.
I don't know. It sounds good,
maybe that's a good ratio of let's look at the positive. Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But then there's the, I don't know, reviews, this. And so when people can have 50 great reviews and you get 1 bad review, and that's what people remember.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So I don't know. Do you think you could market any of these? Do you think you could put any of these together?
Yeah. And again, I say this, but they need a good content strategy. I'm such a dork. But they do. So, but I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
So you're talking about how marketing is intertwined into what you do in production and all this stuff. So what are you calling? There's different forms of marketing. So what all do you include in your marketing?
So social media is really important. Building a website for a podcast specifically, in terms of having transcripts up there, and there are many other things you can do to build SEO into the website, search engine optimization, so that when people search for a particular topic, they're going to find you. And so that's a huge part of it. Promo swaps and feed swaps are really fun, where you use the community of podcasters. You find a podcast that's like yours, so similar audiences, and you help each other out. You have a promo, you have a promo about them, they have a promo about you, and that's usually very helpful.
So is it sort of like a this podcast is sponsored by, or would it be like, hey, while you're listening to this, go check out this other podcast?
Yes, so it is. It's intimate because the host usually says. Or will say, and we're doing a swap with Ozarks True Crime coming up on February 14th, because I feel those are very similar podcast burden and Ozarks True Crime. And it's actually a feed swap. So they're going to play our episode 1, and we're going to play their episode 1.
Okay.
And with a real, I approached them because I genuinely like their podcast,
Yeah.
and said I think we have similar audiences. And so there's going to be an intro that is Stephanie and I saying, like, this is why you, Burden listeners, might enjoy this podcast. So check it out. And they're going to do the same for us.
I haven't listened to them yet, but I did find them when I was like, okay, so my way of building up the database, because this doesn't exist yet, right? So, well, until now, I just built it.
Right.
But a list of all the podcasts that are being produced inside of Arkansas.
Right.
So there's a few lists that were put together in 2018, 2019, but there's only like 5 or 6 different podcasts, and it's like from the Northwest Arkansas papers put it together.
Yeah.
Or here are 5 podcasts in Arkansas that are produced by women that you need to know about. And so that was in Soiree. And I was like, okay, well, I'm having to piecemeal all these things together. But I'm like,
Lady Justice was featured, not to be.
What's that?
I worked on, Lady Justice was.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. It's Women Justices.
Ladies of Justice or something like that?
It is Lady Justice, Women of the Court, because there was a Lady Justice podcast, but we really wanted to use it, so we gave it a little, tagline.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it's for women state Supreme Court justices from different states who came together to talk about civics.
Yeah.
And they all have their own perspectives, and so that's the podcast I launched when I was with the Arkansas Supreme Court.
Okay.
So it was really fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. I did not know that. But yeah, I found out about a lot of them that I never had heard of before. I just went into Apple Podcasts and several other streamers and be like, Arkansas Podcasts, and like some of these popped up, and I'd have to go do some research and be like, okay, because some of them just have like one episode where they interviewed somebody from Arkansas, so they mentioned it in their show notes, and that's why it showed up.
Yeah.
But there's over 120 that I have listed right now.
Wow.
I know there's more out there. I'll need people to be able to send them in and let us know, hey, you're missing my podcast, or I like this one, and we can get it added to the database. But there's so many that are out there.
Absolutely.
Some of them have been started with great intentions and then just abandoned.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you starting, because I feel someone needed to, so I appreciate your initiative to starting a podcast convention in Arkansas and to starting a database like this, because it's just really neat. And I hope to, I don't want to completely commit to this because I know but one thing I think would really grow the page and the website is doing features on these podcasts.
Yes.
And maybe we do that more easily by there are questions that we send everybody, so it's not this complicated thing. And then we feature an Arkansas podcast every week or every month. It depends on how much time we have. But that would hopefully draw the Arkansas community.
I'm on the exact same wavelength. I've been thinking about the same thing. Yeah.
Cool.
For sure.
Okay.
And thank you. You've been helping out with the socials and giving us some great Power of the Pod little
marketing tips.
Little nuggets of knowledge to put out there, because a lot of people we run into so many people throughout the day that are I have the idea. I have been wanting to talk about this, but I don't know how to get started.
Yes.
But I'm just there's never been an easier time than right now to get started. We have technology surrounding us at all times, and even if it's not the greatest quality of something, your laptop that you're using might be older and it has the microphone's not as, but still, you can use that to start growing an audience and then upgrade your technology along the way.
Absolutely.
But they don't really know about how to market their podcast.
It's a complicated thing.
How to distribute it. Which one is the right distributor? When we went to the convention last year, everybody had a different answer. That's what I was fascinated by. Everybody I asked on that stage was how do you get your podcast out? Everybody had a different answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of the app they use, or the
there was
company,
there was
hosting?
2 or 3 that use Anchor.
Okay.
There was Bo Counts, who was using Twitch as his main channel to record all his podcasts, and then he was live streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and at the same time recording it and then putting it out as a podcast himself as an RSS feed.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways of doing that. And Sarah with Arky Travels, she was using something else Pod. I can't remember what it was called, but anyways. Yeah. And while I was looking up the database, building the database, trying to look up everybody's podcast, there was one. Everybody has one homepage where it goes out. Anchor has their page, and then it has the links to your Apple Podcast, Google, Podbean. Here's this. And so everybody's got something like that. There's something called listen notes. You know what that is?
Yes.
I had never heard of that before.
Yeah. And it's just one of the many, like, when you launch a podcast, you should submit your RSS feed to various players. Apple Podcasts is the number one in audio.
Yeah.
YouTube is the number one overall. Like, people find podcasts on YouTube, which is kind of strange to me, but that's where we're headed.
That's why we record. That's why we're recording video right now.
You're very smart and up with the industry trends, and all of that good stuff. But Listen Notes is one of the. You should go there, get an account, and submit your RSS feed. Yeah. And there are like 20. I mean, even like 30. Like, you can submit your RSS feed to whomever you want, and it just helps you grow. Okay. So.
Yeah. So even if you were saying, even if you have signed up with, say, Anchor, which is like one of the most popular ones. Yeah. It automatically distributes your RSS feed to many different like podcasting catchers, you know what I mean? But you're saying you need to go ahead and take your RSS feed and add it on to other places. Like, where would you suggest?
Yeah, so your hosting company gives you an RSS feed, right? Yeah. And then it's up to the podcaster to submit that RSS feed to various. So, like, you're not automatically going to be on Apple Podcasts. You have to sign in to Apple Podcasts for creators and submit it. Same with Spotify. Same with everything, really. Yeah. You're not just going to be on Listen Notes. You go there, you create a Listen Notes account, and say, "This is my RSS feed." Yeah. So you have to take an active role in finding all of those apps and submitting your RSS feed.
Thank you. That taught me something right there. And I was like, okay, I need to submit our RSS feed to Listen Notes. Yeah. I saw that if you had done that, and I was like, I don't even know what this is. Right. Okay, good. Yeah. Good to know. Also, we have an astounding number of sports podcasts centered around the Razorbacks. And I'm like,
that's Arkansas.
That is
Absolutely.
Arkansas.
There's a large audience for that one.
The largest categories as far as like number of podcasts we have in each one. Sports. You know what the other one is? Churches.
Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Okay. So, sports and churches.
Arkansas likes its sports and churches.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, okay, First and Second Emmanuel of 4th Street in Bentonville, Arkansas on the third Wednesday. That's too long of a title for one. Right. And also, not every church needs their own podcast. Whatever. It's free and you can use it.
Yeah, I know during COVID, when people couldn't, go to church and be together in person. There were a lot of those.
They got that favorite pastor they got to hear.
Exactly. Yes. Weekly, no matter what, whether it's podcast or in person.
Sure. So. So that's been kind of eye-opening to me as far as how that goes. So you being the expert of putting out the podcast, you're like, you cringe at the word expert. You're an expert. Yeah. Okay. So you being the expert of putting out podcasts for people, you're editing, you're producing, you're putting these podcasts out there. Yes. Is there anything that you're noticing? Because I know you pay attention to the demographics that are listening to the majority of these podcasts. Yeah. And so is there like is there a major trend or something? Who is listening to podcasts?
Who is listening to podcasts? Younger people.
Okay.
And there are different ways. Well, this was on advertising. It was something that I was listening to today. Like, you have to have different approaches in terms of sponsors and advertisers based on your audience.
Sure.
But mostly younger people are. But older people are as well. So there's an annual, Triton Digital comes out with an annual report on who is listening.
Saw that.
And which used to be for Triton Digital used to be for radio, but then they, expanded.
Oh, I didn't know that. Kind of like Nielsen used to be for
TV.
And
Exactly. Okay. And now it's like we got to keep up with what we want.
Right.
So
Spotify, put out their report. I was reading that earlier and writing up the article for ARKAST on it. But they were saying, the majority of, since 2019, Gen Z has been on an upswing.
Yes.
And basically, this report that they put out, you're looking at it now, but it's very colorful, right?
It is very.
It is not black and white. Just here are the hard cold numbers. No.
Yeah.
This is meant to speak to somebody, but it's mainly for advertisers, and what they're trying. It's who they're trying to appeal to is like, if you're trying to advertise to the podcast space, we would love to talk to you, but here's who's listening. Here's who the market is. And so that's what they're saying is that the Gen Z is on a rise. They've been over 60% they've growth since 2019, but now they take up the majority share of the market worldwide. And I was thinking earlier, even while I was writing that, it's so crazy. So these are people that were born between 2007 and 2012. So how they interact and how they work out their own personal experiences is very different than you or I.
Yes.
We grew up in a different time. Most of these people were born in houses that already had iPhones and Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
So like being in constant communication was always a thing for them. Some of them, this is depressing.
We'll say something like not depressing after this, and it'll balance it out.
Okay. Half of these people in Gen Z were born, also like right now, they could go online and look up their baby photos on Facebook from the original posts that were taken on the day that those photos were taken.
And they're like, there's a big debate, on that as well. It's like, as parents, what are you doing to your kid, kind of thing. But
there's no break out the photo album. It's just log on and see and dig up old posts.
And sometimes you kind of make fun of your kid, but in a kidding way, and then it's like the kid's probably like, oh great, thanks mom for posting that picture. So I try to limit it. That's just me.
So what this report really harps on is how they interact differently, but how they've really forced podcasters to change the way that we record, and that it's not just a one-way conversation anymore. It's a two-way interaction and relationship.
Yes.
And especially when you have, I thought about like the Patreon and different platforms where you can support the creators and the fan-creator relationship.
Absolutely. So,
what is your experience behind that?
Behind Patreon specifically?
Well, not specifically Patreon.
Well, so looking at this report, and it was last year's report, and so we're talking about Gen Z.
Yeah.
There was one, and I mean like not this most recent report, but the one before that. I found it interesting that a lot of Gen Z says, like, I want podcasts with a specific slant. That's probably not the best word, but like I want to seek out this information and then I want to determine what sources are credible, and then I want to form my own opinion. Whereas, a long time ago we had the nightly news, and that that told us what we needed to know about life. And so I think I like that general sentiment in terms of like, I'll seek out who I think is credible.
Sure.
And do it. And a lot of Gen Z, the Spotify report also said that they will support specific reporters. So they see certain reporters as credible rather than like everybody at that news outlet is great. So that's a really personal relationship.
It is.
So that's very interesting to me.
I would say they probably listen to voices that they resonate with them too, as not just factual, but that's incredibly important now. I mean, it's been that's also a daily point of our life where it's like, okay, is this real? Because you hear thousands of comments, especially on Twitter, Facebook, and social, and it's like, all right, let's fact check this because you never know.
It's scary.
Sounds real, but I don't know. Let's look it up.
Right.
So they have to do the same thing with podcasts. I mean, this is the Wild West, pretty much. I mean, we could say and do it. We have freedom of speech. We could say, do anything on a podcast, and we could sell it as truth if we wanted to. But it's really up to listeners to be able to look it up and say,
yes,
I could have lied about everything I just said on this report.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It's
it had you go
scary.
Home, like, hey, just not your head.
Sure, the report.
Sure.
But no, that's kind of scary. So there's a lot of information out there. I see that as a good thing. People really have to be careful with the sources.
Yes.
And verify, like you said. Like, you can verify things, not just take things as face value. It's always hard when there is one post on social media and hundreds of people share it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that originally post was not factually accurate. And then people are like outraged by this thing that's not even real.
Right.
So it's interesting.
How do you interact with your listeners, or how do you recommend your clients how they interact with their listeners?
I think it is good to do a survey of the market because it's different for every client and what their topic is. So, and also, so general things, I do believe with social media, you should pick 2 channels and really do them well. I see a lot of podcasters automatically like, I have to be here, 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 and here. And my personal approach to that is quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Because you can drive yourself crazy all day long saying I have to be everywhere. That's one of my biggest things is quality over quantity when it comes to social media.
Sure.
And then I was just having a conversation with a potential client the other day, and he was like, oh, there's so much to do. I have to, like, every time I have a new episode, I have to post. And I said, well, how about we, like, set up some automation stuff so that you're not so overwhelmed. Yeah. And you can, that's a basic thing when you publish an episode. You can link it to your newsletter, and there's, into your social media. Mm-hmm. So there are automated ways. It doesn't have to be like this is going to take hundreds of hours. You can find some creative ways to save money and valuable time and still be successful.
For sure.
So, yeah.
And so I support several people on Patreon. And so, like, one of my favorite things is, like, when one of the artists I follow or even podcasters, when you subscribe at a certain tier, you'll get these video notifications of, like, hey, I'm going live in about an hour. It's just going to be people that are subscribers on Patreon. Yeah. We'll just hang out and talk. And so I was able, like, last night, I was talking to one of my favorite artists, like, just chatting. And he was like, Ty King, you're here. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. It is awesome. Yeah.
So, I don't know. There's another part of that where, some people offer different tiers inside of inside their Patreon, where it's like, well, you get a private a shout out mostly. You're counted as a producer. You're getting a shout out. Those are fine, I think. But then some people have opted to be like, well, if you live close enough, we'll go grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah. If you feel comfortable with that.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
That's
is
quite
that
a connection.
Good idea?
You're really connecting with the listener.
Right.
There.
Well, we are in Arkansas. We're very, we got that southern, hospitality thing, right?
Right.
We want to know who we're talking to, and we want to, a lot of us still want to meet people in person and be face to face.
Yeah.
So you're saying you wouldn't recommend offering a face-to-face meeting with somebody just because they paid for a certain tier to your podcast?
So I'm a woman.
Yes.
And it kind of scares the idea of meeting up with someone you don't know. But podcasters, I understand an intimate relationship, etc. Yeah. But I'm very, protective about, as the podcast creator, you would not really know who you're meeting up with.
Exactly.
So if my clients are like, I want to start doing this, I'd just be like, well, be careful, especially if they're female clients. I'm just, saying what I think.
Host a true crime podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I have a certain way of looking at the world, and it's protecting people.
For sure. Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like to make you hyper aware of what's going on. It's like, oh no, you probably shouldn't do that.
And that's a lot of time spent too. If you're really meeting, what's the charge there? I know in media, certain hosts, people could pay to go to lunch with certain big, reporters or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a thing. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of time commitment too. So I would tell clients, are you prepared to spend, an hour of your day if you want to every day?
Yeah.
And how much of a benefit is that?
Right.
And are you seeing your podcast grow? Or are you just feeling weirded out?
Yeah, for sure.
Analytics and impressions and seeing what it results in can be good. Yeah.
So from that, as far as making a return on your podcast, which is not always the case, right? It's very rarely the case, especially here when podcasts are barely understood.
Yes.
They are by the state.
Yeah.
Have you seen some good instances or have any good tips, I guess, for monetizing your podcast to make a return on it?
Yeah. So, for example, we run ads on Burden, and those are automatic. We say, there's something called the pre-roll. So it's the ad that's in the beginning, then the mid-roll, and I think it's called the end roll, whatever, it's at the end. And so dynamic ad insertion is what that is called. And companies just say, I want to advertise on this podcast. They drop in automatically their ads.
Okay.
And there are things with that you have to be careful about as well. And so we just kind of sit back and get, paid, which is great. And I say get paid. This whole project was for free. So it's kind of any money that reimburses all of the... Exactly. So have we made money on the podcast? No. Right. Is it generating some revenue? Yeah. But, in context, it's... Yeah.
So to be clear on your advertising, what you were just explaining, you recorded sort of a short trailer for your podcast, right?
Yes. I recommend everybody do that.
Okay. Yes. For many purposes, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Purposes. And then you submitted it as a paid ad, and then that attaches to other people's podcasts?
So you think the trailer I submitted, like, paid for?
No,
or
no.
is what you're saying? Or no? Okay.
So how did this advertisement work? Because you said it's on the front or the back. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's explain.
So, for example, we use a hosting company called ARKAST.
Yes.
I always call it ARKAST. It's a cast, and I always call it ARKAST. I don't know why.
Okay.
But they have an option to submit your show, and you don't have to have a certain amount of listeners, which is really good, because for most of these things, when you submit, they're like, well, we don't really want you to work with advertisers until you have 20,000 downloads or something like that, and some podcast producers can't reach that.
Sure.
So we submitted Burden, and then it's open for ad buys in any company, whether that's I'm trying to think. There are all kinds of companies. There are a lot of like car companies that have advertised on Burden, like just random. So these marketers get an account.
There was
and
one in particular, because I listened to all the episodes. There was one, I can't remember what it is now, but there was one in particular that was like almost every episode that they were advertising on.
Yes, so they can buy many different spots if they want to.
Okay.
Yeah, and I learned about the spreadsheet where you can say certain categories, please don't do that. It is interesting. Because that will... So it's been a trend in terms of people saying, okay, advertise on my podcast, and then you'll go to Apple Podcasts and see like 20 bad reviews, and they're not about the content. It's like these ads.
Hate these ads.
Yeah. Or like there was a true crime podcast, and there was an ad on to buy a gun, which is just terrible. But
are you serious?
Or I shouldn't judge. I think that's not ideal.
It doesn't really fit the content. No.
Don't do that. And like tobacco products and stuff.
Sure.
But see who you're allowing to advertise. So we've had to go through the spreadsheet.
Read through that spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. Like say, not really. Yes, not really.
Yeah. Well, same thing with any kind of agreement or contract or something. Just probably read through that.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. Absolutely. You're signing your life away. So.
Very interesting. And so, alternatively, being able to monetize that because you've accepted ads. Have you ever considered, or do you ever recommend like something like a Patreon, or it doesn't have to be through something that's already like a platform that exists. It can be through your own website, or offering for a paid version of your podcast without ads.
So I would say definitely actually go through a platform that exists, because of all of the headaches or work is really what I mean, all the work that it's going to take to set that up. Yeah. There are many podcast hosts who have now set up the ability to, you can upload a file and say, this is for my subscribers only. Yes. So go with that technology, use it, don't build it yourself, because that takes a lot of time.
It does. Yeah.
So it's good to go with that technology. The subscriber model is where I think the industry is headed. It's what I see. One thing that I think is backfiring is that a lot of podcasts will make the final episode, and with true crime podcasts, that gets really hard. They'll make the final episode something you have to subscribe to. And so there are a lot of podcasts actually that have gotten negative reviews. So it's like, hey,
a huge cliffhanger. By going up
and then
to
you're
like the penultimate episode.
Exactly.
Pay for this final.
Yes.
Wow, I've never seen that before.
Oh, it's so annoying. But I did pay for a final. Yeah? There was one that I just had to see. I forgot what it was, but So it worked, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, I did it, but I did not like it.
Yeah, like I thought a little less of them or whatever.
Yeah.
And again, I'm a democratization of media person, so I don't like putting things behind a paywall. At the same time, you got to get paid for what you do. You can't do it all for free.
Sure.
So subscription models are good. Patreon is good. It takes a lot of time, is what I've learned with clients and with Burden. It takes a lot of time to upload stuff. You got to edit videos. If you have raw videos, you have to edit that.
Yeah, of course.
It's a lot. It really is.
Right.
But if you can do it and you have the time, you have a stable audience. People subscribe to the show, pay $5 or $10 a month, and that's nice and that's very helpful. But my goodness, with Patreon, all of my experiences have been, this takes a lot more work than I ever thought it would.
Yeah, because now you're not only trying to get paid with what you already done for the main show, but you're also having to create new extra content for that too as well. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a lot. And that's what's hard, because in general, people start podcasts and already say, wow, this is a lot more than I ever expected.
Yeah.
So they're saying that about podcasting in general, and that's what's a little bit hard about having a podcast business. There's clients who drop out. I guess that happens to everybody, but who really are overwhelmed with podcasting, and then you have to actively seek out new clients because you've lost the client. But there are people who get overwhelmed with podcasting to begin with. So I would say I wouldn't advise having a Patreon in your first year of podcasting unless you don't have a job and you can commit so much time or something. But taking that on right away, and podcasting in general, if you've never done it, that's a lot. I don't recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Just
not in your first year. So that's an interesting point about listenership and like gaining an audience, building up a fan base, that type of thing. And so for you, you went with Burden. You knew that it was going to have so many episodes, right? You're looking off in the distance.
I was looking at that beautiful. The studio here is pretty, and so I was just.
Thank you. It's not. There's
but I am listening to you as you ask me questions.
But you knew it was going to be like, it's not going to be an ever-going sort of series. I mean, you may have different seasons,
limited,
but you know that this particular story that you were telling was going to have to end at some point to catch up to modern times.
Yes.
And then one of my favorite events that I've been to was your kickoff, your launch party.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
That was awesome.
I was really nervous about that. I didn't know how people were going to respond.
No. I wish more people did that, because I was like, this is incredibly original. It was fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. That means a lot.
You hit all the boxes for me. Where I kept getting surprised. We're like, okay, now we're going to play the first episode for you guys to listen to. And it's like, you get a huge room full of eclectic group of people that are sitting around in the room that were sitting there, very quietly and just listening over the speakers.
I definitely recommend a launch party. It's one of those things where you can directly connect with your audience. And we did a lot of trade for that. Like, for example, the venue was the Nest. So it was, let us use your venue, which is normally a couple $100. And you can advertise on Burden. So they were our sponsor. Then some of the food that was served was also trade. So that's a way that you can do things like that. You don't have to have a large budget. Just approach someone. And that's why a trailer is important, because it's like, okay, this is what the show is going to be about. The audio quality is decent. Things like that. Just show that you're legit.
That's amazing.
And then you can have trade. Trade is a big thing if you don't have any money. What's that?
It's a
bargaining chip. There you go. There you go. Yes, absolutely.
You're like, I need that. Here, I'll give you this. You give me that.
Exactly. That's
pretty incredible.
And that's a big part of my. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But that's
this is about you. I have a habit of talking over people and keep going on and on and on. You got to tell me to shut up and please give me answers.
No, absolutely not. But a big thing about podcasting is the trade and is connecting with other podcasters. And I talked about that earlier with promo swaps and feed swaps. But if you're connected with other podcasters who can promote your show, that's a way of, if you have a marketing budget of 0, it's still excellent marketing. So there are always trades that you can do that'll grow your show if you don't have a marketing budget at all. So,
that's great.
Yeah, it is. Connections, they matter.
Connections matter.
As I know, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when you were putting out Burden, how many episodes in were you before you started seeing an actual, I mean, you probably had quite a few listened in the beginning, but now you're up to 200,000. I know that for a fact. I was there. There was not 200,000 people in that room.
No, there wasn't.
Okay.
Nope.
So when did you see an uptake in your listenership?
So at first it was all Texarkana, Arkansas. But then we were featured in Apple's New and Noteworthy, and that helped a lot, I think.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just people searching for true crime podcasts, making sure you put your podcast in the true crime category, and we put it in the documentary category.
Okay.
So the number one place that people find more podcasts is in a podcasting app. There's always that you may also like.
Right.
And I think that's how we got people. But it was the community of Texarkana really. We had a large listenership there that lasted for the first 2 episodes. Well, it lasted for the whole season. But it was once the second episode came in, it was people in Chicago were listening to this. People in Singapore. This is random. But they were finding us in a podcasting app, I assume. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, we watch plenty of documentaries about crimes that happen elsewhere, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
I was watching one last night on Netflix about a guy in the 90s, completely off topic, but it'd be a great podcast if anyone wants to start this.
Yeah.
There was a kooky guy back in the 90s who was illegally importing Pez dispensers.
Oh, wow.
Like
random,
collector, they were collector items, super rare Pez dispensers, and it was like they're so rare that like he would have to go to the shadiest places. He would like go on a dirt road in Serbia and just meet like this militia that had they would.
Is that worth it?
That would have.
I guess it was to him.
Got shot at several times in different places, but had
Pez dispenser.
A Pez dispenser.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
He just started collecting them and then started bringing them into the U.S. and that's when he got in trouble for it because legally the company Pez was the only one authorized to be an importer of Pez dispensers.
Interesting.
And so, it was crazy. Then they ended up letting him go, and he made millions of dollars off of these Pez's that he sold. That was super rare and incredible story. I was like, wow, I'm blown away.
Really interesting story. Yes.
But I've heard so many stories like that through podcasts. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna drive. I'm gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
I particularly like. I don't know. I'm really into like video game media and movie reviews and that type of stuff. And so I've got my few that I listen to there, but then also like the scripted paranormal type of podcast, which we have some in Arkansas. And I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are fun. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure like the difference between scripted and just what we're doing right now, huge difference, right?
Absolutely. In the time that it takes, there's a big thing, and that's what I always ask clients to say. I want to do a podcast, and I say, is it an interview show or a narrative show?
Yeah.
Because there's a huge difference between sitting down and talking and going out in the field and doing 20 interviews and coming back and writing a script.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference. Not that this doesn't take a lot, because it does.
Okay.
But narrative podcasting is it's a lot of script writing, a lot Yeah.
So what's your favorite kind of client? The scripted or the ones that are just talking?
Scripted, because of my background in journalism.
Okay.
I love it. I like it when people hand me all this raw footage, audio footage, video footage, and say, do something with this. I like looking for the characters. I like looking for the story arc. That's just me. And I love writing little cliffhangers at the end of every episode that, like, here's an additional layer you're going to find out. The Staircase documentary, do you know which one I'm talking about? Like on Netflix, the woman, the wife that fell down the stairs.
Yes.
And they did an amazing job. I loved seeing what they did in terms of like, on the next episode, this is coming up, and it's like a whole new layer of, oh wow, okay.
Oh my God,
so
that made me
I
so
love
mad
writing that
every
kind of
time.
Yeah, I know. It was, and then it was like, wow, that's really messed up.
I was like, oh man, this is about to end now. Then it's like, then she find out in the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. Then you're like,
God.
it's 1 a.m. I don't have time for this. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So but
pretty much.
I love creative writing. Yeah, I absolutely love it. So. And that's one reason I went into podcasting, because I was writing a lot of scripts, obviously, and it was public radio, so writing scripts for public radio. And then I listened to a podcast called Young Charlie, which is about Charles Manson. I don't know if you've ever...
Young Charlie.
It is called Young Charlie.
Oh, my God.
So I was like, okay, I'll give this, a whirl. Actually,
it's not a sitcom
someone
on
told
NBC.
me to...
It sounds like it could.
Right,
Young Charlie.
No, Charlie, and we're talking about Charles Manson. And so I turned it on, and they did a really neat thing. There's two hosts, a man and a woman, and one represented Charlie, young Charlie.
Sure.
We get insight into, how he grew up, etc. And then one represented present day Charlie, which is like the trial and like the murders and stuff. And so they switched between these hosts, and it was written in a really cool way in terms of like, you could tell it was really thought out. And then you associated the man's voice and the woman's voice with the different periods in his life. Okay. I was like, you can do this. That's really neat. It's just something I'd never thought about. So it's like, okay, you can be like way more creative with storytelling. Yeah. And that was cool. That was like, okay, I want to be a part of this rather than just like news reports all the time. So, Young Charlie.
Fascinating.
Check it out. It's really good.
I will. Yeah, I definitely will. Like, sounds interesting. I'd like to hear that. Yeah, the possibilities are endless. Like I said, it's pretty much the Wild West right now, where like everybody has a voice. It's free to use, free to upload, free to. I mean, they really have no excuse unless you just absolutely do not have any time.
Yeah.
You know.
Or if the technology is like really intimidating, but I don't think it's a big investment to ask somebody to help you with that. So I think that's okay. But some people are like, what is an RSS feed? I don't know. What's a hosting company?
Well, that's why you
there's
exist.
Still that. Yeah, I mean, I would love to help anyone who has questions about that and get it set up. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So can they, from top to bottom, start a podcast and have all the things done that they need? Marketing, the distribution, all that with you?
Like with me? Yes, I only take on a certain number of clients. I'm really, really careful about that. So that I know I can dedicate the time needed
so
to
you
clients.
Don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and so when we have our first meeting of what they need from me, I always plan. Okay, this client needs this, and it'll probably take this amount of hours. So yes, they can. If I'm, if all clients like are giving me, 60 hours a week or whatever, then no, I'm not taking clients currently. But yes, they can, and I like being able to offer an all-in-one solution. That said, if there's something, like I wanted to come up with a podcast logo, and I was just stuck. And so I contacted someone that I worked with at Stone Ward, a marketing company.
Yeah.
And I said, I need you to do this because otherwise I will look at this podcast logo with every episode that's uploaded and be like, that could have been better. Yeah. And it'll drive me nuts. And so he helped, and he helped tremendously, and now I love the logo. So while I am an all-in-one one-stop shop, if there's something I can't do for the client that I want to do, I'll absolutely pull in somebody else.
Very cool. Yeah.
So
Good. So it was just the templates. Like you can go on. Was it the Canva? Like they have the template of the icons for your podcast.
Right, and you can just drop in your. Yes, they are generic.
So it's like a pair of headphones and an old style microphone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think at first when people weren't using those templates as much, it was okay. But now that everyone's using it, you're not standing out in the crowd.
You can't tell the difference between one and another because of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, where do you hope to go? This is 2023. You're still podcasting, right? You're not working on anything currently, right? Are you?
Bird in season 2, but I need funding.
What?
So I need either grant funding or like to partner. I need a partner, like a media partner, maybe. And I have some meetings coming up, so hopefully something happens.
Yes.
And so, because like I said, the last season was free. I mean, I worked for free. I can't do that again. I can't afford to do that. So I need someone to kind of say, okay, season 1 was good, and kind of get some upfront costs and then pay off later.
Yeah, for sure.
So looking for that, I would love to do that, but I need to find someone to partner with or a grant. And I hope to one day, my dream would be to partner with a major, like a Wondery or a Lemonada Media or something, and learn from them. One cool thing from having clients, a lot of my clients, not a lot, some, have marketing companies that they work with.
Sure.
And so I'm working with them in terms of promoting as well. And I like seeing what the different things that various marketing companies do because it makes me better, or I can make a judgment call on like, well, that seems to work better for this. So I like to be involved with a lot of different ways to do podcasts and then find my own way that I personally think is best. So, but yeah, I want to partner with Wondery on Bird in season 2.
Nice. There it is. You put it out there in the universe. It's going to happen now.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I hope so. But
I hope so.
That's really thinking big.
Yeah.
But but something like that would be my dream. I love narrative podcasts, but I also still interview shows where people can express their opinions are good too.
And do you, like somebody in your position, do you think that something like a Kickstarter would be beneficial, or would it just be another time-consuming task that you couldn't put your time to?
Of course, I'm going to answer, well, if you put out a trailer, but you have to give people a reason to donate. So if you spend the time doing that and doing it well, then but you probably need maybe a little help on how to do that well.
And I've seen some companies that do that, and they'll have, as long as they have the listenership, like you said, and then as long as you're subscribed to that feed, like even if that season of the show is over, they'll upload, hey, don't miss out on this, and hey,
Yeah.
we got a Kickstarter going right now for this,
Right.
and give you like a
Right.
little snippet preview.
Yeah.
But it comes up as a new episode in your feed or
Yes.
your podcast.
Yes.
It's like, that's very interesting how they do that.
That's how they do it, absolutely. In our last episode of Burden, we did kind of a call out for people to donate to the next season. It wasn't terribly successful. It was like people we knew who were so sweet. They were like, here's some money.
Yeah.
But that didn't work very well
That's
for
how it
us
starts with
specifically.
anything. That's
Yeah, I
any
know.
business,
It's like,
yeah.
I support you. I'm
Yeah.
I've been your
Yeah.
friend for 30 years. It's cool. So, but if you can get people, if you can produce a professional trailer or make the case for
Mhm.
funding, and a lot of times it's like, well, we did season 1, and if you enjoyed that and thought it was a good, good quality, then maybe support us for future content.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to this one?
Anything else? I don't think so. I'm excited for ARKAST, and like I said, and I know you're a very humble person. It's funny, whenever someone compliments you, you're like, yeah. So, or I feel like I've seen people compliment you, and you're like, yeah. So enough about me.
Yeah.
But I am
Not
going
supposed to catch that, Karen.
I notice things about you.
Yeah.
But I thank you for taking the initiative for starting something like ARKAST, because that's really cool. And someone needed to, and all it takes is someone doing it, and you did it. So, and what's
Appreciate
funny
that.
is, someone said, yeah, there's this podcast, convention. Are you going to be at it? And I was like, no, they haven't invited me yet, and I don't want to invite myself
You
to
never
the
told me
party.
that.
I didn't want to invite myself to the
That
party.
was before I asked you?
Yeah, and so then you
I
contacted
didn't
me.
even know you guys were out there until I looked around, and I don't remember how I even found Power of the Pod.
Yeah.
But I ended up coming across it, and then I contacted you
marketing,
directly.
right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure. It worked.
Yeah.
And I contacted you, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I think you guys would be perfect for this.
Mhm,
But you already
mhm.
knew about it? I didn't even realize
There were some
that.
people at Public Radio that said, yeah, there was this guy, and I didn't know your name or who you were. But he was talking about, like, this podcast festival, so you
Yeah.
should, like, talk to him. Maybe you can be part of that.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I was shy. I was like, I don't want to invite myself to the party, so maybe he'll contact me. So I was happy when you did. Like,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Absolutely.
I
wish
guess
you
I
would
needed
have.
you to
Okay,
reach
well,
out
it
before
worked out anyway,
I reached
yeah.
out. So, but ARKAST is exciting. I hope that we can, build this
Grow it.
for
Yeah.
Arkansas.
Yeah. Definitely need some help planning this year.
Mhm, absolutely.
I'd like to do
Absolutely.
it. Some things we learned from last year
Yeah.
where the timing was a little too tight,
Mhm.
and then probably
Yeah.
somebody else to come in and host it this time, like be the actual
to
speaker.
help. Yeah, absolutely.
That way I can be free to go around and do all the other things, and
Yeah.
like that's just not my forte anyway.
Yeah.
I could sit here and
I
talk
thought
to
you
you
were
about
good.
this,
Yeah.
but like me being in front of a huge crowd, that's a completely
that. I
different
hate-
arena.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
to have to
Yeah.
demand the attention. If
Mhm.
you guys can pause and stop or whatever, click out of this anytime you want to, but like when you're in
Right.
front of a whole crowd and like you're trying to make it entertaining for them, but also engagement, and it's like, yeah, you hold out the microphone to them and like you don't hear anything back, and like, well, that was embarrassing. On to the next thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was a content-packed event, which I tend to do too. When I'm doing events, I'm like, okay, we need like 7 people to speak,
Yeah.
and then it's like we really could have had 2, but it was a content-packed event, so I imagine that you got very tired after. I mean, it would.
It's exhausting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's performative emotions,
Mhm.
and yeah.
Right, exactly. So, I think
It's
you
fun.
deserve
I
it
still
all.
learn. I felt like I was in the audience. A
Yeah.
lot of the times whenever
Yeah.
like you guys were up there talking and asking the questions, and I'm just like sitting there listening. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to come out with another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And but like you were saying, it was like I don't know. And you've got a cadence to your
Oh, cool.
voice that is very, very cool, and like
Thank you.
it's very calming. I don't know if
I
you
can
practice
kind
that.
of. Well, it's just from anchoring, and when you anchor early mornings, you have to. Sometimes you're talking, but you don't even realize you're talking.
Yeah.
You've got the script in front of you, and you're
Yeah.
like, "I'm so tired." So it's kind of just keeping the conversation going. Is what I try to do. Although I don't know, I'm not great at it. I'm fine with sitting in a broadcast studio and talking to 80,000 people a week. But being in front of them is totally different, and a lot of people
Yeah.
don't understand that about me. I'm actually really shy and very
Oh,
introverted.
okay. Gotcha.
I just pretend not to be
Yeah,
sometimes,
there you
but
go.
I'm actually, so they're always like, well, don't you
See.
love public speaking? Aren't you good at it? No, not at all. People are in the crowd, and I'm like, oh my God, it's people. Like, there's more
Yeah.
accountability. If you look at them and they seem really bored, it's like, I should probably say more interesting things or something like that.
It's necessary. It's a necessary evil. You know,
It is,
like
it is.
I'm an
Mhm.
introvert too, and so like
Yeah.
somebody came up to me a few weeks ago, and they were like, "Hey, you're my favorite fake introvert," and I was like, "That's a great way of putting it. Thank you." And I was like, it's, I don't know, in a way, you are just acting. You're an actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I need these things to happen. And so I was like, all right, feel that rolling for a minute. Like you were at the, even the convention itself or your kickoff party where it was just you and Stephanie standing in front of this huge crowd and addressing all these people who were very tightly squeezed up to the stage, I guess.
No, I appreciated it. I watched the video and I saw, like, you introduced us, and then I was going to be the first speaker, and you're like, so, tell us about your background. And I was like, hi, I'm Karen Steward. I have a podcast called Burden. Like, I didn't answer your question whatsoever.
Oh, it doesn't even matter.
It was just funny. So I was like, today when I'm, right now when I'm with you, I'm going to try to focus on answering questions.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just start talking.
That's the best kind of answer, though. Like, that's what it was already on your mind, you know what I mean? So, and you had just done a workshop teaching other people how to do,
which was really neat because there were a lot of Arkansans there that were like, this is my idea, and the ideas were great, and like libraries that wanted to start podcasts.
Yeah.
So I hope that some of those people since have gotten some good information and have started.
For sure.
So
I've seen there's a lot of like media sources that are local that have started. When I was collecting the database, like, especially like Arkansas Online and the Gazette even has several of them. Library, of course, NPR records everything that they put out and releases it as a podcast.
It is much easier when you're doing public radio.
Right?
Say, I'm going to upload this as a podcast. Yeah, and public radio kind of started podcasting for that reason, for that obvious reason. Just saying we're going to give listeners on demand because broadcast, you have to be there a certain time of day. It's like if you're not in the car and you're working, then you can't listen to it. So on-demand audio is absolutely, it's awesome. So, yeah.
That's why we interact with any kind of media, like especially TV shows. It's like, it's got to be on my time whenever I want to watch. And
with YouTube, it's like, I have to watch this commercial. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because I'm so spoiled to not have to do that.
I took my daughter to, it was one of the first times I took her to a hotel, and she could not understand why she couldn't skip past the commercials and basic cable in the room.
Same here, yes.
And I was like, this is a different time and era here. So I got to explain this to you.
Yeah. And then it was the exact same with my daughter, and then she starts like saying the commercials or saying the things that are on the commercials. And you're like, okay, that's the other side of it. Now it's in her brain because she's had to watch it. And she's talking about these brands or whatever. But she has a fake YouTube channel, or she records videos and pretends. Private. Yeah, well, so what I mean is like she records videos and pretends that they are on YouTube. Yes. Like she has this channel and everyone watches it, but it's so cute. Like,
right, guys,
click and subscribe.
Yes.
I'm like, you're the cutest thing ever. She does gaming though, for real. Like the kids are having gaming channels. And we have strict rules on that in terms of like you do not give your name, you're not on camera ever. Like it's your gaming screen and you're talking about it. So she really enjoys doing that. But we have strict rules on that. But I like it when she records kind of fake YouTube videos, and it's like, okay, see you next week.
Yeah, mine does the
scary but cute
makeup tutorials and all that stuff. Yeah. So she does all that. I put her on the VR. This was something I was going to bring up to you. Yeah. And I've got a video I recorded, and I'm going to do the whole thing on it. You know, write an article on it. But so I dove into the virtual reality metaverse. So I got the Oculus, it's not Oculus anymore. It's MetaQuest 2. And I was like, I love technology. I've been dreaming of VR since I was a little kid, you know what I mean? It's we're finally at a point where it's coming around. And I've only had one thing make me seriously nauseous, and that was being on a roller coaster that was a shooter. And I'm like, no. I laid on my bed, and there was like such vertigo, I couldn't move or anything. I felt so sick in my stomach all night long.
They gave you the experience at least, I guess.
Yeah, right? Thanks.
That
I paid for
terrible.
that. Yeah, I paid to feel this way.
Right.
But the metaverse, that Zuckerberg was explaining, was you being able to create your own social profile. You go in and like you're interacting with people, just like you're right here. I would see your avatar, and it's like it feels like that you're near me at this distance.
Sure.
Okay, so first that was really awkward for me because I was going to these rooms and I was like, the introvert in me came out again. Like, I'm used to doing this and like being able to push my way through. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, in like crowds in person, but it was like a whole different layer of that where like I felt like, oh man, I do not want to run into this guy. It's like I was just sliding it across the wall. I mean, try not to touch anybody, even though that couldn't feel it.
Why was it? Do you know why it was different?
I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just something
because
in
in real
brain.
life, you're, like you said, you know how to kind of keep going and talk to people.
But see, that's how I am naturally. So like I've had to train myself over and over the years is to be able to talk to you like this. I wouldn't. Okay. I dropped out of college because I had anxiety of meeting new people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't even step out the door.
Oh,
okay,
my
so
goodness, that's terrible.
we're at that
right,
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I don't understand you typing.
Again.
Now you're like, I'm going to go, because a lot of your business is based on in-person communications and stuff.
Right.
So I don't understand you, because if you were like that in college,
It's all
you've trained yourself, right?
No.
Oh, no. I guess you've trained yourself, like you said.
Well, I enjoy it on some level. Like, it's fun.
That's good.
It is fun. You know what I mean? But naturally, I'm an introvert on the inside. And so when it came into that, being able to slide around somebody else's, their avatar, like, it just felt weird. It's like, I don't want to touch you, and this is strange, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people get too handsy in the metaverse, and
weird.
like that's a whole thing. And I'm like, doesn't. Have you created your avatar on Facebook? The one where like you make a post and you can make it through the ducks or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what you look like inside there, right?
Okay.
So I was like, man, there's nothing attractive about these things. Why? I don't get it. And like they're stalking. Anyway, so it's weird. There's a whole nother layer of just weird and creepiness there.
Right.
But
always. One
of the interesting things that I found was that you can create different worlds inside of. It's called Horizon Worlds, and some people have decided to make their own worlds, which is like, I don't know how to put it in like real world measurements, but it's a pretty fairly sized, land room, whatever you might call it. I don't know. Maybe 2 acres of land. How about that?
Yeah.
But it's digital, right?
Yeah.
And so people are creating their own studios, just like this.
Okay.
And they're just in their living room. They don't have to spend a dime because they're building a digital.
That's cool.
Yeah, studio.
Yeah.
Going in and recording live episodes of their podcasts.
That's awesome. With
other guests from around the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Their avatar's sitting here, the other one's sitting over there.
Yeah.
And because we're in close proximity, I can hear you. And so if I start recording, then we can go ahead and have a full conversation, and I've got that podcast.
That's really neat. So that's using technology for good, right? And not creepiness.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
and there was the one I really liked had a glass wall in front of it where there was like an bleachers for an audience where they can go out there and sit and watch. But the settings were set to where anybody that talked on the other side of the glass you couldn't hear on the inside of the glass, so it was already soundproofed.
Yeah.
So you could come and watch people record live.
Yeah.
On the podcast, if you wanted to, and not interrupt them at all or anything.
Okay, that's neat. People love live recordings and
Super
being there. So
interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, just thought that was a weird term.
That's the future of podcasting, and I need to know more about it. So I'll be contacting you.
Stop buying a super expensive studio and just
do it that way.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was incredibly interesting, and it's kind of weird. I don't know. It's easy to market, I guess, because you can download the video itself. You have the audio, and then it's just mastering that. So
wow.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Cool.
You just think it's cool? You're like, I like it.
Use technology for good. I mean, even things like AI. It's amazing what you can do now.
Yeah.
And scary because like for somebody like me too, like you can upload a file, for example, like into Descript. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's awesome. And it does all kinds of things.
It's like copywriting AI, right? Copywriting? Sorry.
Oh, yes. It's even more than copywriting. You can paste so you get the transcript. And if you want to move something, you paste it, but it moves the audio too. So you do not need to know how to edit. You just need to know how to cut and paste.
Oh,
Super
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
Okay. So. And it creates like little snippets for social media and
or just your episode. Like if you want to edit it and you have no knowledge of editing
it takes
software.
the uhs and ums out, or what does it do?
There is a feature where you can do like file, and one of it is take the uhs and ums out, and you can say but keep 2 seconds in, because sometimes like when you do the and you take it out, it's like everyone's talking really fast all of a sudden and it's weird. So it has all kinds of features. So I am not afraid of AI. But I think it's cool. Like things like that will give us the next level up in terms of like, okay, you don't have to worry about this now. So let's do marketing. Let's do bigger and better things.
Yeah.
So I am all about like using AI and VR, even though I don't know that much about it yet, to step up your game.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are good tools.
Yes.
Because there's like a big uproar in like artists, especially right now, where, have you seen this, with the AIs that are be able to create images but using text? Like you say, I want a knight standing on a sea cliff, you know what I mean, in France, and like red bandana tied to his arm, that type of thing. You know what I mean, and it generates that, but it's based off of so many copywritten other pieces of art.
Yes.
That that's pulling from, and so a lot of artists are anti-AI because it's stealing. Well, it
does. Artists are usually the ones who get.
Yeah, but I mean,
so,
visual arts. I mean, people are just visual, and I think it was just inevitable we're going to come to this point.
Yeah. Wow, I saw there's a software where you can, like, basically you stand in front of a screen once, and then you talk, and it gets used to your voice, and then you can make any training video you want.
See, that's using it for. There you go.
So
that's what I was explaining to somebody the other day. I was like, because this thing with AI and art, it kind of it brings back an image to me of, you remember Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or was it Charlie? Which one was the older one?
There's two different, Willy Wonka.
That was Willy Wonka.
I think. Or was it Charlie and the Chocolate?
I don't know.
Anyways. But cool.
The Tim Burton one, the most recent one. Anyways. How his dad lost his job at the factory putting toothpaste caps on the toothpaste bottles because they had a machine that came in and started putting the toothpaste in the
Exactly.
But then he got a job being the technician for that machine. And so we've got to figure out a way for artists to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. It's inevitable that your pieces are going to be used. Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Exactly.
And so...
Yeah. It's the same thing in the TV world. I knew, like, TV producers who worked with the systems, but then it's like, oh, they're automated systems now, so you don't need these people, like actual people doing that.
Who needs humans?
Yeah, who needs humans? But the good side of that, there's a lot of bad, but the good side of it is, like, then let's step up the content game rather than, like, focus on, cutting and pasting files. So, exactly. Technology, good most of the time. If you use it for good.
Can be used for good. Let's put it that way.
There you go. Yes, that's accurate.
It's
it can be used for good.
By default, it is neither good nor bad, but can be used for either.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mind blown. No, just kidding. That's the conclusion we came to. It's
right.
It can be used for good, people.
Yeah. You can do good things.
But yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Karen, anything else you want to promote besides Power of the Pod? We've talked a lot about that. And
I feel like I've kind of babbled on for quite a while.
Yeah, you're fine.
So, I don't know. I come back to ARKAST. I didn't know, like, you surprised me with, so this is going to be a separate podcast from your Healthy Business podcast? Yeah. Oh, wow. Very cool. I didn't know that.
Yep. I just wanted
That's why she's not here, your co-host.
Yeah.
Did she just not want to come in?
Oh, no.
No, I went because, like I said, the podcasting thing, I felt like I knew her because I listened to your podcast before, so which is creepy but funny but cool. All those things.
I don't know, but we kind of get those relationships with people we listen to a lot, and you're like, oh, they're my friends. And like, you never met these people.
And you know, yeah, exactly. So,
but this is purely to talk to other podcasters about podcasting.
I love it.
And
I love it.
Thought you were the perfect candidate for the first one. I mean, since you not only are a podcaster, but you help plenty of them put their own podcasts off.
So we'll do promo swaps on this podcast. Podcasters, listen to this, and we will talk about your podcast.
Yes.
Arkansas podcasters.
Also, we'll have a jar. Like, how many times? Can you guess how many times we said podcast in this podcast? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Guess how many's in the jar.
A little bell that goes. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
For sure.
No, this is cool. We need to market it in the right way, and it's going to be awesome.
Okay. I'm going to take your advice on that one, yeah.
No, you've got ideas. The whole, like, just featuring Arkansas podcast.
I do, but like you said, you always learn from other people.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, for sure. Because nobody does it the same.
Nope.
Even though you're under the same industry or whatever, everybody has different ways of doing different things and different perspectives. So.
Yep, that's right.
Yep. All right. Yep. Well, it's great having you. Thank you so much for joining me with this.
Thank you. I always enjoyed talking to you. So
sure.
it's talking and learning from you. So
you've been helping out with the socials and for ARKAST itself and giving the Power Pod. So anywhere that we can push business over your direction and get more podcasts going. That's
I always appreciate that. Yes, that's great.
You like push all the money in my lap. It's a catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. In business, there's a TikTok video that I saw that it's a girl, and who's like, she likes a boy and she's waiting for a text.
Yeah.
And so she, says like, whatever, I'm done with him. This is not interesting, whatever. Yeah. And then the text comes in, you hear the chime. She's like, oh, never mind. And that's what I felt like having a business for the first year. It's only 1 year old, but it's like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And then an email comes in and it's like, hey, I heard that you were good at this. Can you do it? And it's like, okay, never mind. It's going to work. So that kind of business thing is hard. But if you stick with it, it's good. But that's how I felt over the past year.
Trust me, I know that feeling all too well.
Bipolar or roller coaster or something.
Yeah, right.
So,
I don't know if it's going to even survive, past this month. It's like an out of nowhere. It's like, oh wow,
you get a good client, or
then
absolutely.
that imposter syndrome sort of fades away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, if you are a video watcher on YouTube, you probably found this either through the ARKAST website or through YouTube itself. You can also find this as an audio podcast from all the audio podcast catching devices and platforms such as Apple and Google. We're going to do the listen notes. We're going to put that on there.
Yes, absolutely.
We learned how to do that. Also,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Stitcher's another one that people kind of say like I don't need to submit to.
Yeah,
but it's a good one. So
people are still using that.
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
Good to know.
Yeah, I've heard about it for a long time. I never used it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's there.
All right. Well, if you are an audio listener, you can also catch this as a video on YouTube or on Premium Spotify. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave all the things.
Great.
Yeah, all the stuff.
We want to hear from Arkansas podcasters. We're here
for
you, and it's not just us. It's going to hopefully be a whole collaboration of podcasters within the state.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Contact Power the Pod. Contact Karen. Tell her.
I just want to hear about what everyone's doing.
Some help.
Yeah. And I'll help. I'll help anytime. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to hear your idea.
Just want to hear it. But let me give you some tips there.
Yeah. It's awesome. You can also catch the ARKAST video of you being on stage and answering a lot of my questions that I threw at you there, too.
Fun. And you put me on stage with someone okay, Stephanie's cool. She's my co-host. But also the Clint Schaff from the LA Times.
Yeah, Clint.
That was an excellent person to be on a panel with. He's so neat and has done so many things. So it was just really cool.
Well, hopefully you get involved this year, and I can throw somebody else at you too.
Hey, let's do it.
Let's make it creative.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're big time and you've been backed by Wonder and
yes.
Season 2 is well under production.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I hope so. We've got like 18 ideas, but no funding yet. So.
Okay. Yes.
We will be
like you said,
working.
I mean, it can happen out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You're gonna get an email.
And that's the thing. One day it's like we're never gonna get funding, and the next it's like someone agrees. And
before I even process this, we're going to have to tag on an extra little bit and be like, well, Karen got an email after we did the podcast.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I would love an update. I would love to.
We didn't get a chance to put this out there yet and beg for money yet.
Exactly. It's very public radio. I have that training of if you like this content, please, donate something.
Yeah.
So, which is what our last episode, it's like, if you want this high quality journalism, please give us some money. Yeah. And that's sincere, obviously. Yeah. But I'm so used to begging for money to create
Kinda
independent
have to when you're a creator like this.
Yeah.
Did you like it? Give me $1.
Mm-hmm,
I would like $1, please. Thank you.
This will not be backed by the big corporations. It's going to be backed by you.
Exactly. Right.
But you just have to.
Because you're not going to like me if I get backed by the big corporations.
Yeah, you're going to think I'm
it's going to be different content than what you're used to.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well. Great. Like I said, I appreciate you having you on. I'll put you in the show notes of how to get to Power of the Pod and how to contact you. Yeah, of course. Great. And of course, links to your video we spoke for ARKAST. And so we're just continuing on those channels. They're already open. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
All right.
I appreciate you.
Well, until next time, you want to say bye?
Bye.
All right. Well,
bye.
God.
I'll say it with confidence.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. If you're an Arkansas podcaster, please contact us and let us know. We want to interview you. We want to promote what you're doing.
Right.
All those good things.
All the good things.
So, all the good things.
We want all the good stuff for you.
Yeah.
So this is normally where I would say keep your business healthy, but I don't have that tagline because this is the wrong podcast.
Keep your podcast healthy?
Make
your podcast healthy. Your podcast is going to be healthy.
Yes,
Contact PowerPod and your podcast.
Healthy podcast for everybody.
It's good.
All right. Well, until next time. Bye. I'm just going to say bye.
Bye.